Month Review, the weekly podcast brought to you by Open Letter and 3%, in which we take one giant book, break it down section by section, bit by bit, talk about it, analyze it, and have fun reading it. And this season, our 10th season, is all about Ducks Newburyport by Lucy Ellmann, a book that keeps losing prizes, winning one, and causing various controversies, which we'll get into in a second. I am Chad Post from Open Letter Books, joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox.
Hi, Chad. Thank you for that unique and enthusiastic introduction.
I couldn't remember how to do it. It's been like so long. I forgot what we were doing for a second. Right. But we're good. We're back. We're here. And we are joined this week by special guest Jeremy Kitchen, who is the punk rock librarian of Chicago.
Oh, thank you. And I also have a little radio show too. We called I-94 out here. So you guys like Chad's stuff, and I think you'll like it too. So.
Yeah, and you can listen to it online, correct?
Yeah, it's lumpenradio.com. It's our community station here in Chicago. So
I've been on your show. It was awesome.
Yes, you have. You said some wonder. Yeah, one of our favorite guests, Dubravka. We actually talked about her in an interview recently. She's one of my favorite people. She's
so cool. We have a new book by her coming out in November.
Oh, awesome. And Brian's going to be on the show. He's going to send us some books. So.
Yeah, the publicist said he sent it out yesterday or the day before. So it should be.
Oh, shit, that's awesome.
It's on. Two of them are on the way for you.
Thank you so much, Brian.
No,
Lucy's going to be on the show.
Who is?
Lucy Ellmann.
Is going to be on your show?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Well, I was going to ask her to come on this, but I'm scared.
She doesn't like to do email. I'm sorry. She doesn't like to do interviews. And I sent her an email as a host and a fan. And she was like, oh, I don't really like doing interviews. And then I sent her back. I'm like, well, we could pre-record it because we interviewed Nico Walker that wrote Cherry.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He's in jail.
So I was going to say he's in jail, right?
Yeah. So he just answered the questions, and then we had our reader do it. I suggested Lucy do it. She was like, well, if you're going to bug me and you guys really seem into this, then she agreed to it. She's going to do 15 minutes of questions. So we're excited.
Wow. So, that's great. I was going to ask her. I didn't think she'd want to come on here. I'm also terrified of her. So I think that she's just very smart and says great things. And I will feel very dumb asking her questions.
Why are you scared?
I'm scared of everything, man. Because I don't want to look like more of an idiot than I am.
Did you read the book about the woman with two vaginas that she wrote?
No.
That's what comes up when I was doing research on her. Apparently, she has a book about that subject. So I'm going to try and dig that one up.
That's question number one. Where are the two vaginas? How does this work exactly?
I don't know. Have you ever read Cock and Bull by Will Self?
No, but I love Will Self.
Well, it's two novellas, and one, a woman grows a penis, and then a man grows a vagina on his knee.
Oh, solid.
And he falls in love with his knee. It's pretty amazing. And he's a rugby player, and it's very Will Selfish. So. Fun.
I should say, for anyone who hasn't heard I-94, which is spelled E-Y-E, like eyeball, I-94, you and your two co-hosts are the best readers of books for a radio show ever. It's you guys and Nicole Silverblatt that really do the work, read a ton, have a lot of great insights and questions. It's a very cool radio show to listen to. And I highly encourage everyone to check it out.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
So speaking of interviews, though, with Lucy Ellmann, you guys read the Guardian one, right? That came out last week.
Yes, I feel like she's in the Guardian every other week. She's
perfect.
She's getting a lot of exposure. It's amazing. It's really cool.
Okay. So Jeremy, you missed it. You're not on Twitter either, are you?
I-94 has a Twitter page, but we're pretty lax.
Yeah.
We're terrible.
Yeah, so that's good because Twitter is evil and a bad place to exist. But there's a part of this interview there's a few parts that caused some little controversies in a whole Momgate about one section. But
Momgate?
Anthony came up with that, and I'm just going to stick with it. #Momgate. Hashtag moms rule.
I like it.
So there's a couple of things that she says in here that are interesting. One is she says that she doesn't read contemporary fiction. And this is amazing. She's like, well, I reading Mrs. Dalloway and Caradoc Evans' story collection, My People. Then she says, quote, I find the annual celebration of contemporary writing, the Christmas list of 2019 books, quite offensive. It seems so arrogant. These lists suggest that the most relevant books must be the ones most recently published. That's daft.
Preach.
It's nice of people to take an interest in new writing, of course, especially when one has a book out that year oneself. But let's face it, it's a marketing ploy. They want to ship some books. So to do so, they glory in the now. Well, everybody knows readers would get more from reading Ulysses or Woolf or Kafka. So then, Private Eyes, log rolling, and
she says nothing after the Hiroshima.
So that's the next part. The British literary world is pretty small. Some time ago, I pretty much decided to read only books written before the atom bomb was dropped, when everything changed for all life on Earth. The Industrial Revolution is bad enough, but nuclear weapons really are party poopers.
Party poopers. I always thought that was a great word.
But then,
party.
To follow this is amazing. The intense humor, innocence, sexiness, and play of the life and opinions of Tristram Shandy, Gentleman, for instance. Could this have been written after Hiroshima? Could Gargantua and Pantagruel? Could Don Quixote? Emma? I don't see how. Thanks to the offenses of patriarchy, a lot of the fun has gone out of being human. And I like books that look at life in less constricted ways.
That's amazing.
Amazing. She also takes issue with the Observer for saying that her book is 8 sentences long. She's like, where did this even come from? Like, what are they doing?
She's like, I hate to admit, it was your publication, I think, that started this rumor, but yeah, it's not 8 sentences.
No.
This reminds me of something that one of your other authors was talking about when she was giving her Sigrid. I forget how to say her last name.
Sigrid Kallesfather?
Yes. She was mentioning how the politicians and people in places of power, their discourse has become so absurd, it has become like the responsibility of the artists and the writers to be speaking with more tact and correctness. And it's the exact opposite, right? They're supposed to be the ones that are being correct and measured. And it's the job of the artist to be ridiculous and absurd and pushing the envelope. And there's this kind of inverse that's going on right now. And I think, part of that could be with this atom bomb, and then, the way how crazy everybody acts afterwards in positions of power.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And I love her interview here. There's the big part that I'm going to ask you about, or that I'm going to read to you, that takes a minute, but it was the one that really kicked off a shitstorm. But I love her interview because I love when artists say crazy shit. It's sort of like you mentioned Will Self, and Will Self gives great interviews too, where he has like just wild shit that he wants to say. And I agree with most of his opinions, but at least, and if I don't care, because he has opinions. He doesn't feel like one of those. Yeah, very smart.
No, smarter. I mean, I've seen the guy talk 3 times. He talks like he writes. You need a dictionary, but the way that he speaks. So because that's the way he speaks, it doesn't come off as pretentious as opposed to someone that's trying really hard, sitting there with a thesaurus writing down. But that's the way he speaks. It's bananas. I was just, I saw him. He came to Chicago on the Great Apes tour, and he was talking in all that biological jargon. He started out with the apes in the zoo. And I was just like, I apparently he has linguistics training when he was younger, but I was like, how does this guy talk like this? I mean, it's bananas.
That's wild. That'd be really cool. He had that one controversial interview not that long ago that was sort of like this, where it's like, I don't read contemporary books because most of this stuff is dumb. Like, there's so many, like, I don't know what to tell you guys, but like, it's really not going to last very long. But so this is the part, and this is the part that, like, with 3 dudes, we probably are the least qualified to talk about this, but it's the one that set off a whole huge problem. So there's a question that says, you're a mother and a great defender and critic of motherhood. How do you balance these positions? This is long, but bear with me. What worries me is the big divide I've occasionally observed between mothers and daughters. I suspect patriarchy is behind this hostility. When women turn on each other, you have to look for the source of that. Who benefits? It's a great pity because all of this woman-on-woman anger could be better directed against our oppressors. I was very close to my own mother and feel the power and meaning of motherhood are widely overlooked, again, in service to patriarchy. But now that we're in a climate emergency, the closer we can get to 0 births, the better. I do admire women who decide to not have children for the environment. I think it's touching and noble and generous. It's also incredibly sensible. People don't talk enough about how tiring, boring, enraging, time-consuming, expensive, and thankless parenthood is. Why must we keep pretending it's a joy? Sure, there are some delightful elements. Children are endearing and fascinating, and if you have some, you get to play with toys again and read children's books and remember your childhood. But illness, worry, conflict, overcrowding, the relentless cooking, the driving, the loss of privacy, the repression of your own sexuality, the education dilemmas, the lack of employment prospects, and all the wretched insanity of adolescence, these are big deterrents. You watch people get pregnant and know they'll be emotionally and intellectually absent for 20 years. Thought, knowledge, adult conversation, and vital political action are all put on hold while this needless perpetuation of the species is prioritized. Having babies is a strong impulse, a forgivable one, but it's also just a habit, a tradition. Like weddings are putting butter on popcorn.
Hey, can I put that on my OkCupid profile?
Yes. I love it.
I do too, especially nowadays, when you say anything that's slightly off the parenting track, people lose their minds, and it's honest.
Yeah, dude, having kids fucks you up for a good number of years.
It's like dog ownership. Don't go there, man. You'll get...
They're going to eat you.
They'll kill you in the street if you say, yeah, maybe you shouldn't have a dog.
Yeah.
How dare you? They're like children. Maybe you shouldn't have those either.
I'm one of those. I'm a pit bull, so I know.
I would never.
I've been working on like 2 long time comedy bits, and one is about how you can't make jokes about dogs. I don't like dogs. It's like a thing. I don't know why. I just don't. There's not my thing. I don't hate them. I just whatever. But anyways, but
so
yeah.
What's the controversy in that though?
So people were super pissed
because it upsets somebody that has a different stance.
Yep. A few men who have young children are like, this is bullshit. She should stop giving interviews. This is just condescending and mean to people who have kids. And like a lot of people jumped on that. I don't even understand where they're really getting that from, because it's not not really any of that. And then the best tweet though is that poor Chista Kakpour. She blew it just a little bit. So I'm going to tweak her tweet so that it's the better version of it, which I also did not come up with, but whatever. She tweeted in response to this the fact that Lucy Ellmann didn't go far enough, and we should be eating children. Solid joke from poor Chista. Appreciate it. But yeah, people were really upset about it. And it's like a whole deal for a day, and a lot of dudes deleted their tweets later, but some of them still remain, and you can see like all these other people jumping on and being like, she shouldn't be talking about this. This is blah blah blah. You mean to people who have children, and it's just weird. It's so weird, and like for that to be the conversation, like people then, I bet a lot of people that are commenting on it never read the book. But then also like, why are they having like such a reaction to someone actually saying something that seems like fairly thought out? Even if it is like some of it feels a little off the cuff with the metaphors and the comparisons, and that's fun. That's when you know you're feeling your voice, right?
And she has a sense of humor, obviously, and there's like a tinge of satire to it. That, I mean, if people can't, come on, she's making a point, but yeah.
I mean, we live in this. Our discourse has become, you can't make fun of anything. I'm not even talking about, this is a woman that has children.
Yeah.
Has a daughter that's making fun of motherhood and raising daughters, but yet it's not okay. And it's for me, it's just out of control. Everyone has opinions, and she's a right to that opinion because she's lived it.
Yep.
I mean, that sounds 100%. And like Chad said, it was off the cuff. And I'm sure, she's not saying exterminate the kids that you have now and let's move forward with no children. It's so bananas. And this is what drives me crazy. And we try and avoid any political talk on our show because everybody gets so wound up about one thing and no one can agree on anything. And I think it's going to, looking forward, it's doomed having any intelligent conversation about anything.
Yep.
This sentiment mirrors an experience that Valeria Luiselli was talking about in an interview, where when she was pregnant, I believe I'll just kind of paraphrase what I can remember from it, but she didn't read anything, she didn't write anything, she had no creative endeavor for a little while, And so it was during her pregnancy, or maybe right after the birth of her child. I can't remember which, but this idea of where Lucy Ellmann was saying, like, how can you be politically active? How can you be creative? How can you, like, you have to sacrifice for your children. Like, that's what you have to do when you have children. And it was that when I read that, it made me think of what Lucy went through when she was having her kid.
Yeah.
Like, there's this gap of, I mean, she's extremely productive and having this wonderful moment, and as far as like writing this tidal wave of fame, but like, yeah, there's this empty, this dry spot where she wasn't doing that.
Well, you have this helpless creature in your house. There's not much you can do except take care of it.
Yeah.
I'm not a parent, so I don't want to go too far into this. But everybody I know that has kids, first thing they say is reading goes out the window because you can't read with a newborn. That's what I'm told.
I did pretty well with reading with the newborn because he'd sleep on me, and I'd read as he sleeps. It's one thing. A lot of bookseller listeners will be pissed about this, but it's one of the good advantages of the Kindle is that you can be in the dark room, rocking the baby to sleep, and with one hand be like reading something on your Kindle. It's like that is like it's built for that situation in so many good ways. I remember when I had my first daughter, I read the whole Snopes trilogy while she was nursing and like waking up in the middle of the night. That was the one thing I wanted to do. I don't remember it very well because 4 a.m. reading while you're feeding a baby is not necessarily good for the memory, but you can kind of do it.
I just think too, like, as a woman, like this thing is like literally sucking the life out of you. Like, like that's what it literally does for a season, right? Like it's like just literally sucking your energy and your life, and it's like waking you, like you're a zombie for this little thing.
You're just tired all the time. Yeah. Hashtag respect moms. So you also like, Brian, you're doing all this. Like, you basically count as a mom in a lot of ways.
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, no, it's tough. Like, I'm basically a single parent, but I get it a little bit, but I don't have the physical demands that are taken from me. But yeah, I mean, like, your life is, you reshape everything around the needs of a kid. It's a huge hindrance if you're trying to have like an agency or wanting the freedom to be able to do something. Like, it's gone.
Yeah, schedules are the most important thing.
One of the things to get into the text I wanted to ask you guys about, it was interesting. I reviewed this for the Chicago Public Library website, and when I was reading it, it's what was interesting to me, and Chad, I mentioned it, this one of your guests said that it wasn't a difficult book, which we can get to in a second.
Do it.
That's insane. Technically, it's not difficult, but thematically, and this is what I wanted to bring up, because on an earlier episode, you mentioned the snake and alligator mounds is something that really stood out to you. That was you, correct?
I think so. We do a lot of talking, man.
Okay. Well, there was like these burial mounds that are referenced in the book. Do you guys remember this?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and they had the ATV drives over it and ruins the serpent mound. Yeah.
And when I was reading it, what stuck out to me was all the classic movie references in it. The 100 pages that we were going to talk about today, it starts out with Jane Fonda and goes through all that. And the other thing that really stuck out for me, which I don't know why, is Joyce Carol Oates' hatred of pear trees.
I marked that. I was like, where is this from? That's wild.
Yeah, because it was just like so out of nowhere. And there was also in this section this lengthy discussion about eggs, and then the iguana laying eggs, an unfertilized iguana laying eggs. But she has this. Let me find it. If you guys want to talk for a second, let me dig this up here.
Yeah, just to make clear what we're doing. So we are going from page 620, I believe, or 622, up through 700, which does not end at the end of a section. Most of the time, we've been able to end these at points where it switches between the narrator's narrative and the one of the mountain lion. But this doesn't work out this week, so we're just in the middle of a section. So it's a little bit haphazard, but this is the section 2, where she has the list of all important things. All things, the fact that some things were definite, like, and it goes on for like 40 pages of just like single lines, which is the first time the form has been broken in this way in the book, which is interesting too.
Well, her writing in some ways to me reminds me of Mark's. And
Yeah.
you're gonna get whenever someone writes a new experimental, interesting book, everyone talks about David Foster Wallace and Ulysses for some reason, which neither one of these authors came to mind while I was reading this. But have you guys ever read Reader's Block by Markson?
Yes, I have. I worked at Delkey Archive for 10 years. I've read all of it.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
You're in that Survivor club, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk more later.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that reminds especially that all these things that are known to be true, and then the description that they went into after that. And she goes back to the movies back and forth throughout this section. And I'm not one of those people that tries to intellectualize why she's talking about all these things, especially in something with so many themes like this book has.
Yeah.
But that's what came to mind. Markson kept coming to mind. And Brian, that's a nice cat you have there. He's very handsome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Are you a cat hater too, Chad?
No, I have cats.
Okay.
I don't hate dogs. I just have a bit.
We just want to make sure you're not totally heartless. That's all.
95% heartless. 95%. Keep that last little chunk. The movies are always interesting to me because of the way that she weaves them in and out and like uses them almost as maybe I'm wrong about this, but thinking about it now, they almost always seem to be connective tissues between her and another character. So like her and Leo watch these movies, or her and her daughter watch these movies, that it is like a shared experience around a lot of those kind of movie references. But the thing, I don't watch a lot of movies, and those movies I've never, aside from like Witness and like a couple of the others I've seen, but a lot of the ones that she references I've never seen. I just know the names of. So I feel like I don't know how to intellectualize them because I just don't even know what the thing would be. But I do like how they're dropped in there, and I think that there is something to like that idea of these sort of markers are something that we can all engage with.
And a lot of times they like them for different reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They like the same movie, but not for the same reason or whatever. So they're connected, but at the same time, they're not experiencing it the same way, or
Yeah, like Leo, the fact that Leo liked this part of that movie.
Yeah.
When blah blah blah. Yeah, she's a genius. She is a pure genius. What do you think of this list though in the middle?
I'm getting to it.
Starts on 6:35.
Well, it's interesting because she does mention two of the things we talked about. And one, I underlined these after I listened to your earlier episode.
Mm-hmm.
She says there will be Indian mud runs. And then she says Oscars will be awarded to the wrong movie.
Yes.
Oscar hosts will offend everybody. I thought that was great.
I was surprised. I was surprised by how Barbara, is it Stanwyck will always be sexy. Julie Andrews will never be. Some of them are just funny. Selfie videos will get more sophisticated. Some people will wrongly call octopuses octopi and misuse the word enormity and mispronounce February and library. There's a good one for you.
I actually said octopussies in that episode one time, and I was like, that's not right.
No.
It's like Roger Moore at his worst.
Yeah, it's octopi. She also says sausages will be mass produced. Sometimes they will cause botulism, but rarely. And then it says asparagus won't cause botulism, except if it's badly canned. I don't know why I love that line too.
That is so great. It's so great. It's interesting because it's like almost like a condensed version of a lot of this.
Yeah, it's a lot less sorting.
Yeah, it's just like bang, one after another. It's almost.
So the setup for it on 6:35, right? The fact that meanwhile it's the future we should be worrying about, and I cling to the few certainties there are about it. The fact that some things are definite, and these are the things that, right?
This is the future.
Yeah.
I wonder if this fits some of our pattern too, of like the backing off of things and like, because right above the Barbara Stanwyck and obviously sex is open carry guys will always carry guns openly. Like there is that danger again. Trash will get collected most of the time. Some women will
kill their
murdered.
exes.
Yeah. Anorexics will watch other people eat with horror and fascination.
Men will kill their exes and some men. Some women will shoot their exes in imitation. People will continue to be attracted to people or dogs who look just like them.
Porno pics will thrive. It's great because it's funny because you know what it does in a way, like it takes out the fact that part of it. So it just eludes the rhythm to give you like a line of cocaine of like the ideas about the future and the like fears and trepidation and like the funny parts of it. It's just like right there. You don't have to wait for the fact that blank 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 blank. Just boom 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 each line. I think it's interesting. I didn't expect it to like come up this way in here to all of a sudden like break this very very definitive form that she's been using for like 700 pages.
What do you guys think the breakdown was for that? There was points, actually at the beginning of this, going back to the movies and Jane Fonda, she's talking about these movies, and then she goes into all these, she talks about Tom Hayden and Ted Turner, hospices, assisted living facilities, hypertension, Houston cholesterol, some of these words I can't pronounce, toxins, trans fats, aerobics, anorexia, antioxidants, anxiety. And these are all lists, but they're not necessarily things that everyone's going to deal with or certainties, but it's kind of, I think what Chad said, it's like a condensed, easier to sort out list.
Yeah. And it is, yeah.
But
there's a lot to think about in this one. So you said that you thought that the book is difficult for its themes, maybe not on like a sentence level, but in the themes are difficult. Do you want to expand on that a little bit? Because I'm curious as to how you're seeing that.
Okay, the reason I said that is because every review I've read, people have focused on different things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mentioned, the pear trees, classic movies. You mentioned the Indian mounds. These are all things. There's so much you can. Gun control, violence, ecological catastrophe are big themes. But then you also have a lot of people focus on the fact that she makes pies.
Yeah.
And that never struck me. And in fact, I remember Waxman was in town recently and he had a party and we were talking about this book and he was just like, yeah, isn't that the one about the pie maker? And I was like, I'm reading that, but that's not what I think of when I read it, even though that's what she does. And I just think that, this is not a book I'm going to hand my father who likes James Patterson.
No. Yeah, no.
You know what I mean?
No. This isn't a book for normal readers.
Yeah. So when people say, and being a librarian, Chad, I think, and Brian, I sent you that email. The number one determiner of what people are going to check out from the library, the New York Times bestseller list and Oprah, hands down across the board. Yep. So I don't deal with as much academic discourse as probably you guys do. So that's why when someone says a book like this is not difficult, that's why I responded in that way.
Sure. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. I would, yeah.
And just a lot of people don't want to pick up a 1,000-page novel. They really don't.
No, they don't. I'd be curious to know how many people that even reference this book actually read the whole thing.
Yeah, I feel like it's like Infinite Jest. Like all the haters have never read it.
Yep.
And the people that I think you could just pick like 10 subjects out of here and be like, yeah, this pie maker, and then go into what she talks about, and that's your review. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. The pie making thing, like, it doesn't stand out to me either, except that it's like it's like a MacGuffin, like that she has to make the pies that then gives her the chance to talk about everything related to the life. But I think about like when I cook, like I always I like put on music or whatever and cook for like a while and think about all the different things I want to think about. It's very relaxing. And in some ways, although not relaxing, because I always remember, well, I need to do this, or I forgot to do this, or maybe there's an email that I kind of vaguely remember seeing. Like there's those anxieties creep up, but like it is a good activity to allow your mind to be more free. And I feel like that it is sort of like a framing, and not a frame, but like kind of like a MacGuffin, I guess, of like although there's no real end to it. Like, does she deliver the pies? Does that actually even matter? Like, it's not really a plot device so much as a trick to let her think.
Partially, but like I think it works in part of the thematics of it, where there's like this. It's like the most domestic, this idealized American domestic act of baking pies, right?
And
so
baseball.
There's the idea of like, and then it's a side hustle. So she's trying to provide for her family as well. And I don't know. And so the angst and the dread and, the thoughts while you're doing this act, I think works really, really wonderfully and brilliantly as far as how it can be layered several ways and thought about in several ways, other than just the act of making a bunch of pies.
That's a great thought, and it ties into the mountain lion story too, because when I was reading to somebody, it's about parenting in a sense, and man are not great to nature, just like they are man versus nature, I guess, and that ties in with the whole like domesticity, that's a word I have a hard time saying, that goes in with the pie making, and I think that totally makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I was going to ask you guys what you thought about that. With for those who haven't read the book, there's two narratives. One is the protagonist making pies, and then there's a story about a mountain lion, which actually has punctuation, everything. And I think what Brian said ties those two narratives in much better than anything that I thought of.
Yeah, absolutely. And those narratives are curious because maybe that's not really the MacGuffin, but it feels like they have to like somehow not just parallel but collide at some point. Maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. But there seems to be a choice that would be made. That seems to be a choice that is distinctly going to be made as like the book progresses. Like, will these two things somehow intersect or will they not?
There's kind of subtle hints to maybe it happening with where she takes in the egg, and wants to bring it into her own bosom to try to make it work, right?
And they are somewhere near each other. I mean, the mountain lion is near where she is physically too.
Correct. And we find that out at the end because it's in the news, right? Isn't that the
that's right. Yeah, exactly. And like the thunderstorm, the big storm all makes sense. And like then that's part of it too. So yeah, it is The other section I really wanted to talk about was porn. This is my favorite bit to read out loud at home was the part of all the porn stuff, because and this is that's on page 683, where it's like the fact that Ben's researchers are ranging far beyond the waterways of Ohio now, it looks like, well beyond Star Wars too. The fact that I found a bunch of porno pics on his laptop and he's only 9. The fact that I wasn't even looking at the screen. The fact that I just saw he left it open. I was going to shut it down for him. And then these pictures caught my eye. The fact that they're like a Sears Roebuck catalog of bosoms, millions and millions of boobies, a ton of them, all laid out in a large grid so you can see about 50 pairs at once. So you compare them all, I guess. Microscopic tits, teats, paps, tits, teats, jugs. The fact that they're so also teeny weeny. The pictures, not the bazongas. It goes on. So my son is now 12, and when he was like 10, I opened up my laptop, and he had in YouTube put in a search for sex naked. And I was like, buddy, like if you want to talk about like what's going on, like we could talk about it, but like going on to YouTube and putting in sex naked is not going to be rewarding. I think that there are better searches you can do.
Yeah, especially on YouTube.
Yeah. Or on Google, it's like, buddy, learn about incognito.
I've had this conversation too. It's like when we were kids, we had to work for our pornography. You had to steal your friend's dad's magazines or videotape or something like that. Now it's just you have this 24-hour, 7 days a week pornography accessibility. What do you think? It's funny too, because after she talks about she goes into alphabet noodles, alphabet, Star Wars, stormtrooper, pirate, the fact that he must just be curious, Captain Phasma, the fact that it's natural and I must not comment. I like that how she just went from obsessing about all these different types of boobs, and then just be like, okay, well, this is what kids do, and throwing in some extra verbiage here and there. I don't know. I just, the way she goes from thing to thing is, it's amazing how it's written.
Yeah, it really is, because like this is sort of what we were talking about with the pattern stuff too, is that there's a bit of like the construction of her consciousness through those choices is very interesting. So like a different character would dwell on the son's porno collection or whatever you want to call it, like is looking at pornography in a way that's like takes it very earnestly and like and elevates the language and elevates the like nature of the person's reaction to it. Like I can envision a very conventional contemporary novel in which this scene is played exactly opposite. And instead, like her way of like going like, oh, I got next to this idea, this like my 9-year-old's looking at porn, like this is weird. This is a new experience that parents haven't had to deal with before. And then immediately into like the alphabet soup, the running of the sounds, the remembrances, all the Star Wars characters, like that. It's like, it's almost like not a repressive thing, but it is sort of that erasure thing again of like, she's not going to direct it head on, but that makes it like that distance makes it compelling. Like I can just imagine like all these conventional books I read back in the day, like at the bookstore that would be like, this is now a new chapter of like this investigation of what this means and like telling you. And she doesn't tell you in that way. She lets the character experience it in a way that is complicated. And not
instead of just having like a freak out.
Yeah. It's not
again, I mean, movie. Look where it ends up heading by the time she gets to 686. It's like about a third of the way down. The fact that the sad thing is, sex must be so disappointing now for people. Because they learned it all from professionals in porno movies, and it's got nothing to do with actually liking somebody. The fact that the whole idea of taking it slow seems to be out the window. The fact that if Ben's looking at 1,000,000 gazillion breasts at 9, what'll be left for him to discover by the time he's 11? The fact that I guess he'll move on to sit me down upon sites, then the pussy sites, oh my, the mouth on me. And by the time he's 12, he'll have seen it all. And he'll have to develop something really kinky to make his searches more colorful. Like, but like, you know,
you got the astronomy porn.
But again, you're a kid and what you have the ability to be exposed to, like, and then what your expectation is going to be of the world. Like they're set up for disaster. They're absolutely set up for disaster.
Absolutely.
I might be misremembering some of the statistics on this, but there was an article I read maybe a year ago about how there's a huge decline in teenage sex, that kids in high school just don't have sex anymore because they just masturbate to porn. Like they don't feel like it's necessary. Like it's not like a pursuit or like something. They had all this like this breakdown of like that it was like down 50%. Like I think it was something like, you know, and 20 years ago, like 10% of people graduated from high school who were virgins, and now it's like 55%. It's like something like like super huge, and they're trying to understand why. And a lot of it seemed to revolve around people watching porn online was just like desensitizing them, and it just was a replacement. There's no need, but they just don't have any interest, I guess. It wasn't like abstinence or like any of the like hugs not drugs sort of things were making the difference. It was like this other world that's been created in the past 10 years, 20 years.
Bananas.
Yeah, I just really enjoyed again though the way that she's takes us on this wonderful like twirl, this roller coaster of it starts off funny and like that's the seam that we get into it, and then she'll take you down and deeper and deeper till you're like this dread of what is the future going to be if this funny thing I saw, like the thought process going all the way to that.
I have a question for you, Jeremy. Do you think that part of the difficulty for a lot of people to read this book, putting aside the length of it and anything that's intimidating about it, is part of it that it should be anxiety inducing, and that people still, like the general reader, would rather be entertaining and an escapist? And like this is kind of that, because it's funny within the language, and it is. I enjoy reading it in every moment. But like when you stop to think about it, the themes of the future, climate, guns, children growing up, having children, the disappointment between the relationship between a mother and daughter. All these things are anxiety making.
Oh, absolutely. Well, touching on what you said, Chad, and what you said, Brian, on page 689, she's describing all these different types of chickens. I'll just try and read this really quick. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Basket building, chicken McNuggets, KFC, Big Bird, chicken licking, or is it chicken little, henny penny, cocky locky, turkey lurkey, goosey poosey, ducky lucky, ducky ducky. Then she says, the fact that I wish Leo and I had sex more, I do. But my libido's non-existent since I had cancer. So we're having like this kind of nonsensical, fun description of all these various like processed chicken foods, and then she drops this like bomb, boom. I don't have sex with my husband enough because I have cancer.
Yeah.
And I think that goes, Chad, it ties in exactly what you said. Like, people are going to be rapists and be like, oh, haha, Chucky, chicken McNuggets, cocky. Oh, cancer. And then what Brian said, it's like this nuance where you go from like these descriptions or just these ramblings and then to this very serious subject matter. Yeah, I think that would be difficult for some people.
That one, this is actually, I marked the sentence too, but for this, that part, but for the second part of it, the fact that it is hard to reestablish yourself as a person after that and call your body your own, because a lot of this is very disembodied. And part of that, the times when it is embodied tends to be related to disease, like cancer, like this, like sex, but like not having it. Like there's a lot of the embodiment part of this. You could follow that thread. Like someone that's like wanted to do an academic thing could probably follow that thread too, of like, where does the body come up within this narrative? Because a lot of it is just free floating anxiety and joke of sorts.
Absolutely. It's funny too. This book is definitely, I would love for like Chad, you to teach a class on this book.
Oh God.
Well, it's something that it would be you take 100 pages every week. And I'm picking up so much just having this conversation with you. And this is one of the things that I feel like society's lacking now is these like communities where we sit around and talk about books instead of all sitting in our individual corners, like swiping our phones. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
I found this extraordinarily helpful, especially touching on what both of you guys have said.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's been this whole thing. I think I've said this before. I'm sure I have, but like doing these 2-month reviews has been wild to like my reading nature, because it is by forcing to go slow and find ways to talk about a book for an hour a week is like it's an intensive process. Like you start to read differently, and I don't think I had realized how I was reading before. And then forcing yourself into this sort of habit, it does. Yeah, it's been very illuminating. It's changed the way I'm reading things on my own as well. And like trying to talk about them to people. I mean, I do get to teach a class, and we do get into certain books. But yeah, it would be fun to do something like this as a class.
Or even like a seminar, like an online seminar. I don't know. It just seems kind of prime for that.
It really does. It really does. She's perfect that way. I don't know. What other things do you guys have that you wanted to bring up?
Anything? I think one of the things that makes it so, for me, almost so impactful and giving me that like kind of dwelling in that sense of angst is the fact that she doesn't, the fact that, the way that takes over your language. It's the fact that she doesn't dwell on the subject. Like, right, she'll hit you with the cancer and then kind of moves on to the next one. Like, so it hits you just enough, but it's like, well, we're not going to like sit here and dwell on it. We're not going to talk about what sex in the future is going to be like. Just that's not going to go great, and then moves on to the next thing with a joke, and so there's this constant surface level barrage.
Yeah.
I think that goes back to what you said, Chad, too. It's just it's tied in with this like nuance where it's not like slapping your face like in a contemporary, not be like, my son's looking at porn or I have cancer and this is going to be like a 200-page novel about how horrible cancer is. It's just like, here's a little tidbit for you and let's move on.
Yep.
There was, it's funny, we were talking about the comments in the little Twitter war at the beginning. and I forgot about this, but at the very end on page 700, she's singing the Rice-A-Roni song.
Oh yeah.
And after that, she says, the fact that I wonder if every mother of four wonders daily why she had them. The fact that Jake still wets the bed sometimes, but that's normal. The fact that somebody said there should be a statue to Sojourner Truth in Akron where she gave the speech, which goes into a whole nother subject matter.
Yep.
But I just noticed that she just kind of slipped that in there. Any mother of four wonders why they had them. And that really ties in back to what we were talking about in the comments that she made. So perhaps if people did read this, I don't know how you'd remember one tiny morsel like that through all this.
Oh yeah.
Goes right back to what she was saying. And I wonder if we were to reread this and look and see if there's more things talking about parenthood in that fashion.
I think that there are, because it does have a sort of like appreciative anxiety, or I don't know. It is the narrator's conflicted a lot of times, like loves the kids in many ways because they're kids and she wants to protect them, but then is also just like, man, Stacey would probably wish I was dead. like all the and that they're just a lot of work. As someone who has 3 kids, I could tell you 4 seem impossible. The adolescent, the mention about like adolescent craziness is 100% true.
Again, 690, she talks about egg cetera, right? Where there's 2 yolks inside of an egg. The fact that Leo says he's still interested in sex, but I'm a mother of 4, a homemaker and a pie maker, and I'm always bushed. The fact.
Looks like Brian cut out there. But then
the fact that where is it? The fact that I'm a mother for a homemaker and a pie maker. Oh yeah, the fact that I've been tired all my life. The fact that maybe I have chronic fatigue syndrome, which is what our last book was about. The fact that when I do have any excess energy, I like to spend it being regretful and embarrassed. Monster mom, motorhome, motor mouth. The fact that no, I miss sex so much, I really do. And regret how we've lost our way a bit with it. Yeah. It's a really genius book. I mean, it's a really genius creation of a consciousness that is both incredibly honest and feels like something people can relate to, but is also still unique in the way that it chooses the sort of patterns that go on.
The uniqueness can't be expressed enough because, like you, I've read tons of books. And when I was reading this the whole time, because there was a lot of hype around this book as well. And the whole time I was reading this, I just kept saying to myself, I cannot believe how awesome this book is.
It really is. It's so fun. So fun.
Well, it looks like
Brian's gone. So maybe we should wrap up and pick. Do you have a favorite line you want to share?
Yes, I do. Let me find.
Right on.
Okay. And this, again, continues with what we've been talking about the whole time. Dylan Roof reloaded 5 times when he killed those people in the church. And a 5-year-old child had to listen to that, the tiny thing. Prime time, love, health, sex, fitness, friendship, spirit, making the most of all your life. The fact that I think Jane Fonda would have gotten along well with Helen Gurley Brown. The fact that Helen Gurley Brown's recipe for success was to eat 1 yogurt a day and some yeast tablets and never relax. The fact that she cried a lot too, maybe because her dad died in a terrible elevator accident. Mouse burgers, Cosmopolitan. The fact that how do you get over a thing like that? And here again, it's like another trauma interspersed with, I guess, pop culture, even though it's quite old, so it would be contemporary pop culture. With this very intense subject matter, and I think it just ties in with the entire discussion that we've had so far. And I'm glad we had this conversation because it's really made me want to think more about this book and read it again, which is probably the most important thing of all.
Yeah, absolutely, man. There's so many ones that we talked about already were ones I had marked as my favorites, but when they had marked here, I'll just go with this. The fact that actually, to me, E = MC squared seems more like a contribution than a life's work. But hey, that's me. Aurora Borealis porn, size of dust in the atmosphere porn, Newton's third law of porn, the fact that occasionally I kind of think that men could be doing something more useful with all their time besides comparing pole dancers and all, the successor of failure, the fact that they could be out chopping wood or raising a barn, raising a family, making chicken stock, or having a heart attack shoveling snow or something. But no, they seem set on the porno pics. The fact that half the world's drowning in porno pics and the other half's watching Oprah and trying to be positive about things. So fun.
And that's another good summation of everything we just talked about.
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
Is.
Absolutely. So,
well, Chad, thank you so much for having me on. This was awesome.
Thank you. And I think we are going to, for everyone listening, I think we're going to do our next episode to catch up from my being in Guadalajara and having a hellish experience trying to get back and forth from Guadalajara. We will not go into. Involved me mostly skipping a customs line at one point in time just to make a flight. Having to buy a separate ticket because United wouldn't rebook me, all sorts of problems. Anyways, we're going to try and catch up by doing another one of these on Sunday where we cover pages 701 through 776. So I'll post it all on Twitter, so on and so forth, but it'll be airing much sooner, so there won't be this gap, and we'll be caught up because I want to finish this by the end of the year. It's like a big goal. So where can people find you online?
Lumpenradio.com, or we have the show archived. It's EYN94.org/radio.
Perfect. Excellent. And if you're in Chicago, go to the public library.
Stop in. I'm at the library in Bridgeport. Come in and say hello.
Do you still do the donut and punk shows?
The punk rock and donuts, we haven't done one in a while. We're doing one next year, and we're also actually in January, we're doing electronica and donuts in the library, and then we're going to have a sculpture show too. It's going to be pretty cool.
Shit, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
That sounds really awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. This is really fantastic.
All right, Chad. Thank you. Have a good night.
Yep, you too.
I wake up early, I ruffle, lie and wait. All your tragic fiction, I always